All right, so here's a quick overview of everything we'll be covering today. I'll be starting off by talking about lesson planning and class management, and then I'll hand things off to Ashley to finish off the rest of our checklist and wrap things up. And then we'll close our webinar with a final Q&A. All right, let's kick things off with what ALEKS is. ALEKS is actually an acronym that stands for Assessment and Learning in Knowledge Spaces. And it's a web-based math program that uses artificial intelligence and adaptive questioning to individualize instruction for every single student. Backed by rigorous research, ALEKS uses this AI to deliver an adaptive diagnostic assessment that precisely identifies each student's knowledge in a course. Through personalized learning, standards-based instruction that focuses on topics the student is most ready to learn, ALEKS effectively identifies gaps in understanding while enabling immediate success in learning new material. Okay, I'm going to jump right into an overview of the student experience in ALEKS to give you a glimpse at what your students will do as they work in the program. Here's a nice visual to help you conceptualize the continuous cycle of learning and assessment that students experience to ensure mastery and retention of course content. So each student starts off with an individualized initial assessment that's going to determine exactly what he or she knows, doesn't know, and is ready to learn next. Once students complete that initial assessment, they're going to be presented with their unique ALEKS pie chart that's divided into different slices that represent the different topic areas in a course. So you can think of the ALEKS pie chart as a visual representation of a student's progress. So as I mentioned earlier, ALEKS only presents students with the topics that students are most ready to learn right now in their pies. So it's going to relieve any frustration or boredom because ALEKS is going to meet each individual student at their level. Students won't work on material that they already know how to do or work on material that they aren't ready to learn right now. So once students select a topic from their pie, they will enter into the learning mode, which provides students with practice problems and guidance through immediate feedback and detailed step-by-step explanations. As students work in the program at regular intervals of progress, ALEKS automatically presents students with another assessment called progress assessments that check for retention of recently learned topics. These progress assessments occur after students learn approximately 20 or so topics in the learning mode. So ultimately, as you can see by these arrows here on the diagram, ALEKS delivers a powerful cycle of learning and assessment that's unique to each and every single student and enables unprecedented differentiation to meet diverse learning needs. Okay, so here's another visual that actually has a fun little animation in it. There it goes. That illustrates this cycle once again. All right, so now that we have a pretty good idea about what ALEKS is and what students will do in the program, let's get started on that back-to-school checklist with how ALEKS can make lesson planning very easy for you. We'll be highlighting a couple of very helpful features that'll facilitate your lesson planning and to also save you time. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and actually jump over to a free trial account that I already have loaded up. And the free trial is populated with some really great mock data so we can explore different areas in a sandbox environment. And this will actually come in handy when Ashley talks about different progress monitoring tools and reporting later on. Okay, so I'm going to talk about content customization and how ALEKS offers you the tools to really tailor your class to meet your needs. So I'm looking at an Algebra 1 class right now, and I'm looking at the class content section, which provides options to offer you the ability to edit the ALEKS content to follow along with your course syllabus and or pacing guide. You can integrate a textbook with your class, and you can also use modules and objectives to specify a sequence and pacing you would like your students to follow. You also have the flexibility to customize a course using the content editor, which I'll click into right now. So this course actually already has objectives integrated into it. So if I wanted to further customize the content that's in each of these objectives, I'll just go ahead and click on the edit link. And so the content editor allows you to tailor your class content to contain the exact topics that you would like your students to be working on. So as you can see, all of the content is organized in a folder structure, so it's very easy to navigate. You can just check the box next to the topics that you want to include in your class. So if I expand out to these different lessons here, I can just check or uncheck the topics that I want to include. And I can also double click on any of the topics that I want to see an example of. Okay. So I do want to point out that this is an optional feature that's available to you, and you don't necessarily have to customize the content of a course if you don't want to. And you can always go with the default course content settings if you would like as well, and use the ALEKS courses in an off-the-shelf kind of way. All right, so that's the content customization aspect of our lesson planning item. So now I'm going to head over to the ALEKS gradebook. So this is another way that ALEKS helps at the stage for lesson planning, and it's by helping you set those goals and expectations for your students. So you can use the gradebook to set weekly, monthly, and even yearly goals for your students, and it will automatically track and grade student accomplishments based on the parameters you've selected. So as you can see here, there are a variety of different categories that you could incorporate into the gradebook, and I actually wanted to highlight these three up here at the top specifically. Pi Mastery, Time, and Topic are great expectations to set with your students in order to keep them on track, and it also helps them take ownership of their work. So the gradebook is one of the many ways that you can let ALEKS save you some time, since it'll take care of the weighting and tabulations for you as far as the grades go. Okay, so I'm actually going to open up the checklist that we'll be sending out in the follow-up email just to give you a sneak peek. So it looks like the lesson planning point is finished. We talked about content customization in the gradebook. So now I'm going to move on to the class management portion. And I'm going to be highlighting three features that will facilitate the administrative components of managing your class: the class roster, student groups, and share class access. I'm going to jump back over to the account. And first up is the class roster. So we're still in this Algebra 1 class, and we're going to navigate to the roster now. So the roster makes it very easy to see the names of all of your students enrolled in your class very quickly, along with their login names, their passwords, and also the mastery percentage of where they stand right now in the class. A great tip that we hear ALEKS educators do is actually downloading this roster to an Excel spreadsheet and printing it out so that they could easily distribute ALEKS login credentials to their students the first day of class. It also allows you to easily sort and take actions, like moving your students, unenrolling them from a class, and retrieving information about your class as a whole. Okay, so the next feature is student groups. This allows you to group students together for the purposes of reporting and creating targeted assignments. And you can group students by grade level, in-class collaboration groups, and so on. So a really great way for you to take control of how your students are learning in your class, and also to create that collaborative learning environment for them as well. And finally, to conclude our class management item on our checklist is the Share Class Access feature. This is really great if you're co-teaching a class with your colleagues, whether it be special ed teachers, resource teachers, and aides, so that they can view data for certain classes or specific students. You can give access to one or more of your classes based on the level of access you would like your co-teachers to have. And you have this legend over here to the right that lets you know what the different levels of access are and the permissions that each of them entail. All right, so now I'm going to hand things over to Ashley, who will be moving on to the remaining items in our back to school checklist. But before I do that, I'm actually going to see if we have any questions in our panel at this point. So Ashley, while I hand over the control to you, are there any questions that we need to address at this time?
There are a few questions that came in. So they're not necessarily exactly to do with what we covered, but a couple things to address. One is this, can this be completed on an iPad?
Yes, it can. So most of our ALEKS courses are compatible on an iPad and tablets. And an easy way for you to see if the device that you're thinking about using ALEKS on is compatible with ALEKS is by going to our support section on our website. So we can show you how to get there at a later time, or perhaps we can go there quickly right now if you would like.
Sure.
So it's just on our home page. Yeah, so it's just on our home page while Ashley's doing that in the support section at the top. And you can go ahead and click on the system requirements.
Okay, another question that came in was who chooses the login and passwords for, it doesn't say for students or instructors, so I'm assuming maybe they mean for both.
Okay, yeah, so ALEKS actually automatically generates login names for students and for teachers. So once you are registering your students, ALEKS will generate a login name for them based on their first initial of their first name and their last name and a number combination to make sure that it's unique in the system. And the same thing goes for instructor accounts as well.
Okay, and then the last question before we move on, there's a couple other, but we'll address those at the end of the session, is what grades does ALEKS work with?
So ALEKS works with grades 3 all the way up through pre-calculus with trigonometry. And we also have specialized courses as well. And you can take a look at the course products area on our website to take a look at all the courses we have to offer, and we'll show you how to get there at the end of the webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everyone. This is Ashley. So what we're going to do now is think about the rest of our back-to-school checklist, which includes something called knowledge check. One of the most important things at the beginning of the year is to see where your students are at, what kind of incoming knowledge they have when they enter into ALEKS, and any areas of review that need to be addressed. So there's a couple different ways you can go about this in ALEKS, and one of the ways that we're going to show you is through the report section and progress. Now this progress report captures that initial assessment score. So here you can see in this middle there's all these bars. The blue is the assessment score, so that's what you really want to focus on after they take that initial assessment. My personal suggestion is to sort by course mastery. So you click on this link right here at the top, and you'll see your highest assessment scores all the way down to your lowest assessment scores. Now what you want to look for here is any students who got lower than 15% on that initial assessment. Now the reason we give that kind of as a guide is because our courses contain remediation automatically. If they're not, assessing out of most or all of the remediation, they might need some additional support. Now that additional support could come with you providing them with work to do outside of ALEKS to build up some of those skills from the year previous, or if you feel it's necessary, moving the student into another ALEKS course that will address those gaps that they need to fill and remediate them further. So that's one of the first things you want to do after they take that initial assessment is kind of come in here and see the span of your students' knowledge and to address that to make sure going forward they are successful in ALEKS. Another way that you could do it is through our ALEKS Pi report. So if we go back to reports in ALEKS Pi, this isn't going to give you an individual student glimpse, but it is going to give you a class level glimpse. So here you can see where their strengths and weaknesses are. So for instance, these percentages are higher than what you should expect to see at the beginning of the year, but one of these ones is 6%. So let's just pretend that, you know, this is a topic area that they should know most of entering in my course. If they have not learned most of it, this is definitely an eye-opener for me that I need to address some of the skills in these areas. Now, if we click on the percentage of any of these areas, it'll tell you the percentage of students who have mastered each one of the topics in these areas, the percentage of students who have not, and the percentage of students who are ready to learn those topics. So this really helps you focus and hone in on those gaps in those areas based on what the students are ready to learn. So you know that they needed to learn this, and you're addressing it, and they're also ready to learn it. So it's great to have all that information, and it's great to use this all throughout the year to just make sure that nobody slips between the cracks and everybody is learning all of these skills that they need to learn. So that's just a couple ways to do a little bit of a knowledge check to make sure that the year is as successful as it can be. Another thing you can do to add in additional tools to your class is add resources. You can get to it through a couple different portals, one through class administration and this resources area. You can also access it through your class summary, but I like to get through it during the class tools. So if I click on class tools right here and click on my resources. Now resources are anything I want to make available to my students, whether it be a link to a website, a YouTube video, a PDF document, any sort of resource or note you want to add to your course. Now, you can add it at the class level, meaning it goes into the student's class resources and they can see it at all times, or you can link it to specific topics. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in an address real quick just to make it look like I'm adding a resource. Right here, I'm going to select to link this YouTube video, and then here I see all of the different areas. Well, this is a YouTube video that has to do with real numbers and fractional position on a number line. So I'm just going to attach it to that one topic. But maybe it has something to do with all of the areas in real numbers. You can select the whole area and it'll attach it to every topic. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to show you from the student side where it will be positioned. So this is a student's account. We saw this pie when Kathy was showing us the student side. If a student enters into any question and clicks on the explain button, down here in the right-hand corner will be that resource box where it will list all of the resources you've made available to them for this specific topic. If you've made any general resources available to them, it will be up here in this resources area, and these are the ones they can access at any time, all the time, not just for a specific topic. Now, with resources, if you integrate a textbook like Kathy was talking about before, we automatically add in some resources to the students' explain pages. Now, these resources are little notes telling them where to go in their textbook to get additional information. So if that's the route you decide to go on, let's say they're working on something in Chapter 1, and they go to the explain page, again, down in that bottom right-hand corner, over here on the explain page, they are going to see something that says, see Chapter 1, Lesson 1-2 for additional information. So it's that additional guidance and support added in there for the student. The next thing we always want to do and make sure is that the students are making progress, especially at the beginning of the year when we're providing these resources and checking in on the students to make sure that they're filling in those gaps. We want to make sure they are progressing. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And one is back through this progress bar report. Now, I showed you really simply here how to see what their initial assessment scores are going to be. But what I didn't show you yet is this drop-down box. Now, this drop-down box has a lot of different options how you can see progress. You can see their progress and assessment over 6 months, or you can see their full progress. You select what type of progress you want to see and click Show. What it does is it captures all of the progress the student has made over the selection you've made. So this is going to show me all of the progress my students have made over 6 months. Down here at the bottom is their first assessment, which was 29%. And I can see their growth in between assessments, their retention, all the way up until they're at 51% right now. So throughout the year, it's a great way to just keep track of how the students are doing. Another way to keep track of progress, and an important piece of that, is with the standards. We're all working towards learning the standards and making sure that the students do well on their standards test. We are correlated to the Common Core and state standards, so you choose which standards you want to look at. I'm going to choose Common Core. And what we do here is we show you, on average, how your students are doing, and then we break it down even further. Here's every single standard and every single area of the standard and the percentage mastery. At the beginning of the year, you should expect probably most of these to be very low or at 0%. But the great thing about this is every time the students learn, and as they're adding topics and taking assessments, these percentages are always updating. So as you're watching them progress and learn, you should also see these percentages increase over time. Now, if you're not seeing certain areas increase, it could be because they need additional support on your end or resources, or maybe it's something that comes very far into the course material, so you don't expect them to know that quite yet. But if you click on any of these percentages, it will show you all of the students who have mastered it and all the students who have not. So again, if you want to do something very targeted and skill-based on these standards, you know what you need to cover and when your students need to cover it. The last one I'm going to show you is an individual report for a student. So if you want to have progress monitoring throughout the year for specific students, and especially at the beginning of the year if you have any IEPs or you have any meetings with parents setting up goals for the students before, at the beginning of the year, if you select the student and go to Reports in ALEKS Pie, this report is just for that single student. It gives you all of his information. What does his pie chart look like? How does he match up to the standards, right, as of now? What is he ready to learn? What has he worked on but didn't master yet? And what can he do? So this is a great way, again, to keep track of how he's building his knowledge, what areas he's excelling at, how he's working in ALEKS. It even gives you all of his assessment history. So once you get towards, a few months in and the end of the year, you'll obviously see this grow each time you're looking at this report. There'll be more and more assessments to see here. Lastly, there is a learning log. So again, this is making students accountable, keeping track of what they're working on, and showing their progress and how much time and days they're spending in ALEKS and what they're working on. So there's a lot of information in this report, but it really keeps track of how the students are doing, and that's so important, especially at the beginning of the year. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about a couple more things, but before we move on, we want to check the question box to see if any questions came in about anything I covered. So we make sure to address it in more detail if we have any questions. Kathy, are there any questions that came in?
I think we're actually good for now.
Okay, great. Well, that's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a different screen. What we want to do is, we want to thank you for coming. We definitely want to answer all of your questions. You will get a copy of this webinar as well as the checklist. So that's something that you definitely will want going forward. Oops, I apologize. I clicked on the wrong screen. And we do a lot of webinars. You can email us at webinars@mcgraw-hill.com. So if there's no other questions that came in regarding our session, we'll get to the general questions to make sure we have time for those, and then any follow-up questions that come afterwards. Okay, so let's take a look at the question box. Kathy, is there anything you want to talk about?
Yes, so a really good question actually came in. So it says, are students working on different topics at the same time depending on their mastery?
So it depends. So some students can be working on the same topics at the same time, but what we're doing is we're giving students topics what they're ready to learn when they're ready to learn them. So it's differentiated for each student. So it's not necessarily given that they will be working on the same type of problems. It's going to depend. And even if they are working on the same problem type, let's just say we're both working on adding fractions, we're always going to have different instances of the problem. So you don't have to worry about me trying to copy off of John over there because he is better at fractions than I am. It will be challenging for each student.
Perfect. I think one other thing that we wanted to do is show everybody where they could sign up for a free trial, just in case they want that sandbox environment to explore ALEKS on their own. So Ashley pulled up the home page on her screen right now, and our home page is just aleks.com, very easy to remember, and the free trial link is just off to the left-hand side right there where her cursor is moving over. So feel free at any time to sign up for a free trial. Make sure to click on the right box because you want to go to the K-12 section. And then you can explore ALEKS as a student and as an instructor. So feel free to come in here and do that if you want to see a little bit more detail and kind of click around yourself based on the things that we've showed you today.
Okay, great. I hope you all enjoyed this session. We will stick around and probably answer a few more questions offline, but we thank you guys for coming so much today. And again, I'm going to bring up that last screen right here that we do appreciate your feedback. Please take time